Welcome to episode 29, and in this week's fantastic interview with a twist, you'll discover the following 3 business insights. Number 1, if you have a burning desire to start something, should you actually wait until the time is right? Number 2, why disaster can lead to great things when you have a powerful why and you approach it with resilience. And number 3, why you just have to be prepared to face the unexpected regardless of how much you plan. So stay tuned for all of that and so much more on this week's episode of The Truth About Business. I'm Benjamin Brain, and by day I'm a director of a multi-award winning family-run business. And by night I interview successful business owners to share their journeys, experiences and truths to serve as inspiration, motivation and first-hand education for like-minded entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs to fast-track our own business success. This is the truth about business, told by those who have been there, done that, and have the scars to prove it. From the good times to the bad, the marketing strategies and sales tactics to the productivity hacks and success habits. I'm here to give you the de-sugar-coated version of what it's really like and what really works. If you're thinking of starting a business or are already in business, I created this for you. So let's get started. In today's episode, I talk business with both Philip Brooks-Stevenson and Stephen Goddard. Before Stephen and Philip launched their current business, they'd both managed to transition from being employed into self-employed entrepreneurs. And although they were in totally different sectors and had different reasons for wanting to be their own boss, it appears that fate eventually brought them together. After getting fed up with attending the same old networking events, Philip and Stephen decided to create something new, something fresh and something innovative that business owners and entrepreneurs of all types could look forward to being a part of. And so COO Connect was born. Fast forward to 4 years later, and despite being told that the local market was saturated and they were destined to fail, despite Stephen losing everything in a previous business venture through no fault of his own, they decided to follow their passion, and the dynamic duo are now creating a huge buzz throughout the Midlands business scene, having been invited to the Queen's Garden Party. They're being invited as guest of honours to ribbon cutting events, being featured on the front cover of magazines, and have created nothing short of a connecting movement. To find out more about Philip and Stephen, you can find them both on LinkedIn. Philip Brooks-Stevenson, Philip with 1 L, and Stephen with a PH Goddard. Or you can visit their website at www.cuckooConnect.co.uk, and KuKu is spelled K-U-K-U. This was a brilliant interview with 2 inspirational business owners who were totally honest about what it's really like to run a business. The pros, the cons, the challenges, the lessons learned, and the sacrifices they've had to make to get to where they are today. You know, success leaves footprints. So let's take a walk with the proud owners of Cuckoo Connect, Philip Brooks-Stevenson and Stephen Goddard. Stephen and Philip, welcome to The Truth About Business, and thank you for taking out some time out of your busy schedules at the moment to share your business truths with us.
Thank you. Thanks
for having us.
Philip, can you start us off by telling us what your first job was? Where did it all begin?
Begrudgingly, my parents decided that it would be very good for me to have a part-time job when I was at sixth form. So I went to work at the weekends and the evenings at a local Matalan. Not the greatest link to fame, but a Matalan, my local Matalan. And I ended up going there because actually it was quite easy for me to get a job there, because actually quite a few people that I knew from sixth form also worked there, so it was easier to kind of get in.
And I'll say that Philip's probably never set foot in Matalan since.
So you were at college then at the time, Philip. Did you have any sort of clear direction of where you wanted to take life after college? What happened once you'd finished there?
Well, no, I'm often asked this because people assume, I don't know why, but they assume I've always been to university, and I haven't. So I went away to boarding school when I was 9, and then came back from boarding school to go to a local sixth form to do A-levels. And when I was doing my A-levels, and of course, you know, wherever you are school-wise, people are saying, well, you've got to go to university. And I was of the generation where teachers used to say, if you don't go to university, you're never going to have a great job. But that didn't worry me. I just kind of figured out that I'd just come home, and it was actually quite nice to live at home as opposed to most 18-year-olds are raring to leave. And I just thought, well, I live in quite a nice home. I don't have to really pay anything particularly. I don't want to go and be a student because I won't have any money and I'll be living somewhere not particularly nice. But then I also kind of knew at that age that I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I didn't really see the purpose of university then in terms of how will that get me into something. And I kind of knew that I would party more and never do some of the work, and then it would just all be a disaster. So Matalan was my first thing whilst I was doing my A-levels.
And where did you start, Stephen?
Well, I left school at 16, I went to college, and I left college 2 weeks later in a bit of a huff because I just hated it, to be honest. I just thought further education isn't for me. So my first job was actually in a pit.
A pit?
Welbeck Colliery.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going down the mine, my dad did that, but I was actually making the sandwiches for all of the office men. And to be honest, I slacked off a lot in that job. I was 16. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a songwriter, so I used to actually just lock myself in one of the kitchens, sit against the door and eat chocolate that I'd probably stolen, and write songs.
Okay.
And so that was my first job.
So after Matalan, Philip, what was the next role for you? And where has your career taken you up to the launch of where you're at now, which is obviously the KuKu Connect?
So I finished A-levels relatively successfully, I think. Made that decision, didn't want to go to university because I didn't see the purpose of what I would do. Luckily, I think, I'm really fortunate, I'd come from a family where volunteering and being involved in charities and community stuff was always important. So I'd always kind of started getting involved in those sorts of things. But then my first, I suppose what I call my first professional job was working for a charity project with South East Derbyshire College at the time, out in Long Eaton at a satellite centre, which is basically set up in a part of Long Eaton where there were all sorts of issues and problems. I suppose it would, at the time it was termed as a deprived area. So actually it was accessing community resources, computers for people that lived locally, people that maybe have never used a computer, couldn't afford one. So I think, from memory, I think my title was Assistant Project Manager, which I thought at the time, being 18, 19, I thought, I felt quite special that I'd managed to get a managerial job coming out of, coming straight from sixth form. So essentially I went to work in the third sector, in the charity public sector. I did that, moved into another position with another charity for a number of years. I think because I'd been at boarding school for such a long time, all of my friends I'd sort of left behind to an extent, and also that a lot of us lived all over the country. So I was probably looking to get involved in things and just to kind of meet people, as in my early 20s, and ended up sort of falling into politics. So I became cut a long story short, I was a borough councillor when I was 23, then I was a magistrate when I was 25, and I think I'd probably been one of the youngest in the country. I was a Nottingham ambassador, and then carried on working in the kind of the public third sector with charities. I did a lot of free stuff, lots of voluntary work, which I loved, and actually I loved more probably than my paid job. I then went over to Derbyshire. I did a lot of work around homelessness in Derbyshire, which I really, really loved, and I built up a great network there because actually, essentially, I was trying to change the awareness of homelessness, but also build up people that were able to support the organisation from a homeless point of view. I then went and worked for Arthritis Care, who were the UK's biggest arthritis charity. I think I was looking after 18 counties as a sort of an area development manager. Then suddenly overnight, they had all sorts of issues with funding. They kind of closed a lot of the regional sites down, so I was actually redundant. I then went into kind of consultancy. I just got to the point where I thought, I'm pretty good at what I do, which in the charity world, third sector, public sector, was kind of termed development, which was really anything from fundraising to PR to advertising, partnerships, relationship building. And then I sort of thought, well, I'll do that from a consultancy point of view. And I did that right through to the launch of Cuckoo Connect back in 2016. And then actually KuKu built up so much that I ended up kind of giving up all of my consultancy work by late 2017, I think. So, and that's a very short potted history of my career.
Yeah, and it sounds like there that you've really sort of had a passion for helping other people with the work that you've been involved with. So was that something that you knew you had before you started at that first charity position, or was that something that developed at the charity?
I think it's something that I'd always had, but certainly whilst I was doing it, I didn't know necessarily I'd always had that skill or quality, or whatever you might call it. But I remember I was interviewed by various newspapers and television when I was appointed as a magistrate, and I remember saying within that one of the things that was most fascinating, because they were trying to get me to encourage other people to consider becoming magistrates, because it's a voluntary thing.
What is your responsibility as a magistrate?
Well, you're basically one of Her Majesty's Justices for England and Wales. I mean, I don't sit on the bench anymore just because of time, but essentially you sit in court, and you sit on a bench of 3 people. The cases will be put before you. So criminal law, essentially, you're dealing with criminal cases, anything from someone that has been drink driving. And actually my first ever case, interestingly, so I would have been 25, I guess, 26 maybe, was a paedophile case. So I think that sometimes people think, magistrates, it's always about speeding offences and not particularly interesting stuff. But actually, it can be, sort of serious crime as well. But essentially you sit there, rather than a judge and a jury, there are 3 of you, and you decide whether or not someone is guilty or not guilty, essentially. And then you'll look at whatever punishment or rehabilitation that might be. So, but actually, I knew then that one of the things that I really found fascinating was just listening to people and their stories and about where they've come from and what they're doing. That was obviously, from a magistrate point of view, is interesting, because it's, well, how has someone got to a point where they've been in a situation where, they either have or haven't potentially got involved in crime. But actually, I think I probably knew, and certainly know now, that actually meeting people, I'm a people person. I always find it interesting to meet people and listen to, their stories and where they've come from and what they're doing and so on.
And Stephen, how about you? We know you started in the pit. We knew you were spending most of the time locked in a room, writing songs, stealing chocolate.
Good start, isn't it?
What happened next?
So I dotted around through a few different jobs, or many different jobs throughout my late teens and early 20s.
And again, did you have a sort of any clear indication of where you wanted to go in life? You said you'd want to be sort of a musician, but did you know how you'd be able to channel that?
Yeah, I was sort of exploring various ways. I mean, it was before the onset of reality TV, so I wasn't one of those necessarily, so I was actually working at my craft. But I said to myself, I'll give myself 10 years, and then when I got to 26, I'd not made it, so I gave up. So that's in that box, that's gone. And then when I turned 26, so I did a bit of travelling, I explored the world, which was really exciting. I was a cabin crew for a while. Then I sort of settled in HR as a volunteer manager at a hospice, so I looked after probably around 300, 400 volunteers, which gave me a lot of people skills and sort of made me think, okay, so what do I like, what do I want to do? I want to do something that's sort of slightly creative, I want to do something with people, so I did that for a while. Then I set up KuKu Creative, so that was my first venture into self-employment, which was great because it meant that I could channel that creative energy that I always had. And then probably 3-4 years into that, I'd done all of the networking, I'd done all of my own marketing, and I was quite bored of going to the same kinds of networking events all the time. I'm not a morning person, so I really struggled with getting up at 7 o'clock and painting a smile on my face. So I thought, okay, well, if it's not there, then why don't we create it? So we, myself and Philip, decided to launch it in Leicestershire, Cuckoo Connect, sort of break a lot of the networking rules, think about what gaps are there in a lot of the networking events that we currently go to, try and fill those gaps, and use our collective talents to create something fresh and exciting and effective.
Okay, and from those earlier days when you had the ambitions of being the musician, when you'd set yourself that goal of 10 years, when you were going to finally, if you hadn't made it, change your direction and do something else, how much drive did you have at the time? Was that something that you were really gunning for, and how hard was it to sort of take a pivot when that 10 years was up?
Yeah, it was my life. It influenced every aspect of my life, and that's why I think for those 10 years I just did a lot of little jobs that if I'm honest, I wasn't really interested in pursuing in any way. So I put everything into something. So if I'm doing something, I'm putting 100% into it, and it was difficult at 26, but actually I knew that was coming. I knew that age was coming, and I thought, well, what's the next challenge? So let's compartmentalize that and hold on to that energy and enthusiasm, but find it for something else.
And how did you two guys meet?
So we met. We're asked this a lot, actually. So we met. So I think Stephen was in his late 20s. So I was just about 30. But we actually met on a dance floor in a nightclub.
And how did that conversation go from just meeting on a dance floor to building this networking empire?
Well, a lot of conversations, but I think at the time I felt it was quite refreshing to meet someone like Philip, who was interested in some of the things that maybe not your typical person of that age is interested in. So we both shared some interests like walking. We both had a bit of a weird interest in loose leaf tea, which still is with us today, and we only drink a certain brand of loose leaf tea at home. And it was I knew that there was something different about Philip, and we knew that we worked well together as a duo. And, you know, with the creative business as well, Philip's always sort of been by my side with that and helping out wherever possible. But I think the conversations, I think it just happened quite organically, didn't it?
Well, I think that Stephen had set up KuKu Creative, and I was kind of in the background and just sort of helping out, or maybe when there was a query on something or an idea. I was obviously still doing consultancy
or when I was
work.
Stressed, having a meltdown or something.
Always good to have somebody to talk to in those situations.
And we were, you know, when that came about, essentially when KuKu Creative seemed to be turning into something, and essentially you didn't have any time to do then your employed job at the time, it was then that leap of, well, what do we do? So I was, you know, doing consultancy, and we lived in a very, I suppose, probably quite a grand place in Nottingham, and so we just took the leap, without thinking about it. Actually, we just said, right, let's leave here. I've got a little basin Toton back from when I was borough councillor, which I'd had rented out, and so we just sort of took a leap and started.
I think you've got to just have the courage to take that leap, and obviously it has to be relatively calculated. But I think with any change in life, it's always going to bring challenge with it, isn't it? And I think you've got to just go with that.
So what are some of the indications from your experience that yes, now is the time to break away and give it 100%? What gave you the confidence to just go out there and make it happen?
I think, well, actually it wasn't a case of what gave me the confidence. It was I felt emotionally pushed. You know, if you're waking up every morning and you've got that knot in your stomach and you hate going to work, that's enough of a reason for me. But yeah, it was a case of build a client base that can bring a certain amount of money in, and you're not going to make loads of money in your first year or 2 years of business, but know that you're actually in a financially secure position enough to do that, and also know that it's the thing that you actually want to do as well, because sometimes, I mean, I tried a couple of things previously and I thought they were great ideas at the time, but actually when I got further down the line, it didn't work. I was going to make pies for a while.
Wow, how different things would have been there.
Exactly.
Well, and you talk about tea, you were going to do a tea room.
Do a tea room as well.
And you got really, really close to that.
Yeah, and actually that's an interesting story in itself. So before all of this, the first venture was a tea room, and I'd got a beautiful building in the centre of Nottingham, put 18 months of my heart and soul into it, as well as thousands of pounds, and then the landlord wasn't too great at the time.
Basically, there were some complexities that meant that the building was no longer there.
Yeah, so there was a restrictive covenant that was discovered. But so basically, in a nutshell, that whole project had to come to an end, and it wasn't through any fault of mine or my solicitors, but it meant I lost everything.
Wow.
So from having the dream almost there, recruiting staff, to actually saying, oh, actually, no, we've got to now empty that building, and I have no job and thousands of pounds of debt.
How do you pick yourself up from something like
Champagne.
Well, you swanned off to Egypt.
Oh no, I went to Egypt for a week because I thought, right, I need a week on my own. So I thought, went to Egypt. No, that sounds silly. I had a holiday, I had a break because I thought, well, if you're in thousands of pounds worth of debt, what's another couple of hundred going to do? But honestly, it's just resilience. It's just a case of, okay, this has happened. It's not great. It's not ideal. Put that in a box. What's next? What I know I've got the skills and the tenacity to make something happen. So how can I transfer that from this situation to a new one?
I think that's quite interesting, really, because I mean, actually, I don't think either of us overly ever think about it. But actually, it was a really awful, sad, dark time, and particularly for Stephen, because as you said, he put everything into it. And you often hear, television business personalities say, oh, I've had 100 businesses fail before this one, and sometimes you think there's a bit of bluff around it, but actually you do learn things from it. But actually you just put it behind you, so it's almost something that you'd never think about, is it?
No,
unless you happen to walk past the building, which interestingly has never been turned into anything and been rented out since.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because at the time a lot of my friends would say, I'm so sorry for you, I feel really bad for you, and I was like, it is what it is. And I think it comes down to personality traits to some extent, that you can't dwell on things because they're going to happen, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's this quote from Steve Jobs. It's just something along the lines of, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And it's things like this that seem like such a devastating event at the time, which obviously are devastating and can really put people off from going out to venture out there on their own again. But actually what it's led to is you guys being able to do this. So in hindsight, if you could have that same situation again and be successful with the tea room, or have it in that same situation and be where you are now, which one would you pick?
I'll go first. I would say that it in a way it was good that it happened, because actually that business at the time which would have been a great idea, and I'm sure would have had some longevity, and actually would have been really, really hard work, hard hours, which actually any business is, but essentially being in kind of food retail, it's a constant monster. And actually the trends and fashions of what people like to do and go out and spend their money on, whether or not it's a cup of tea, afternoon tea, coffee at a Starbucks, pint at a pub, they change so much. And I think actually to turn that into a business that worked and had that sustainability, I don't know whether or not that would have happened. And naturally, obviously, KuKu never would have come along. And I was just going to step back to actually the previous question about almost that leap of, or what do you do? One of the things, I don't know if you've remembered this, but one of the things I always picked up from Stephen is he said, I've always wanted to basically be my own boss. The reason he says that is because actually he never likes being told to do things by other people, but also that I kind of saw a real skill, and that gave me the confidence to think, yes, we can do this. So it was just about confidence in, Stephen to an extent, and also then. So I think probably I always see Stephen as the slightly more entrepreneurial one, and then I sort of come along to sort of, I don't know, develop things. You come up with the ideas, get things going. Stephen's sometimes the real motivation and the willpower, and then I kind of come along and or you almost plant the seeds. I'm them a bit like the gardener sometimes.
Very well. Yeah, I mean, when I interviewed Susan Hallam, MB from Hallam, that was one of the things that she was very confident of, is that for a successful business, you have to have the visionary and you have to have the implementer as well, because it's no good having the ideas if nobody then goes ahead and executes something. Yes. So it sounds like you have a very good combination.
Yeah, together we make the full picture.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting because from our skill set and also our backgrounds, I mean, you talk about mining pit, I talk about boarding school and those sorts of things, but actually that is kind of our forte, that we've got different backgrounds, which means we can bring different perceptions and concepts together, that your skills are different to mine, but they complement each other. And actually that goes right through our brand so much now that people that we work with and know as well, will always sort of say, well, Stephen is the silly, fun one, and I'm the sensible and boring one. Is sometimes how.
And both of them have their place as well, which is really great. It works so well.
So when you first launched KuKu Creative, which is obviously then led on to Cuckoo Connect, you were in employment at the time and you were doing this in the evenings and the mornings as well, or how did that transition from going to being a sort of side hustle to being your full-time employment?
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work, and this is what I tell everyone that is going to go into self-employment. I never sugarcoat it. You're going to have to work really hard, and so I basically taught myself from scratch. So I worked full-time, and then I came home and I had an iMac that a friend had given me that was sort of resting on a little old tea table. I had the keyboard on my lap on a tray, and I sat there for 8 hours a night, Monday to Friday, even at weekends, and I developed my skills and I developed my craft. And when I'd made a portfolio, of which, I can honestly say some of it was made up, but it was just to demonstrate my skills. When I'd made that, I then literally went out there and made myself known. And so it was hard work, really hard work.
And the name Cuckoo Connect, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, but where did the name Cuckoo come from?
The story went around was through kind of Stephen looking into kind of branding from her own point of view. He kind of came up with all different things. So there was a trend at the time for using 2 different surnames. He might have Smith and Benson, there's all these brands.
Or a colour in an animal, like Pink Lion or something like that.
Sure.
Or something that was unusual, or that might have a story, all down to phonetics. There are all sorts of interesting things. So he kind of liked the idea of KuKu because that fitted into one of these branding trends. KuKu, maybe it sounds like it being a bit more quirky, which of course, because about being different, a bit more creative, fitted into it.
Yeah, it's one of those names that once you've heard it once, it's hard to forget, really, isn't it? So
that was Stephen's plan with that, and then also that people would ask that exact question, which they were asked every time. When we meet people, or where's the name come from? Although sometimes people sort of look at it and go, "Oh, is it Cuckoo?" It's like, no, it's KuKu. But interestingly, about 6 months later, we found out that in French, Cuckoo is a rather naughty slang word for the part of a female body.
Oh, right.
I found out this because my family who live in France, and my aunt said, that's a very unusual name. You do know what it means, but yeah.
Should have probably researched it a bit more.
Yeah. Right, okay, so if you're looking for these guys on the internet, don't click the images button. Just,
you never know what will come up.
I think you'll be okay, but maybe if you're in France.
Okay. So we know that your parents, Philip, had a sort of background in the charity and volunteering sort of sector before you'd started yourself.
Yes.
Is there any history of actual business owners, or are you the first to sort of break away and start for yourself?
Not really. So my late grandfather was a partner in a law firm in Nottingham. So, to an extent, he was more a solicitor. I don't think he would have ever thought of himself as a businessman, but he was in a way being a partner of a law firm. But I think that law firms of the sort of 70s and 80s are vastly different organisations as to they are now, where they really are businesses. So there would have been a little bit of that, and I think certainly my late grandparents, both of them, as are my mother's parents, were key influences on me. My stepfather and my mother have both been in business, run businesses, consultancy as well. So I think that I'd always sort of seen that. And actually, I think probably, before Stephen came along, because they did business within kind of computers and IT, I had kind of thought, well, maybe I might go into that one day. But that's because I saw it maybe as a slightly easier step. I wouldn't ever say I've had a passion for computing or IT. So yeah, I think that. But yeah, so I've certainly had some sort of key influences, but I don't think necessarily I've always had I want to work for myself. I've always wanted to do something a bit different. I've always wanted to do something that I'm quite passionate about and have a belief in. But what I have learnt, and I probably even before KuKu learnt, that actually if I'm doing the same thing, I'll eventually get bored, and that I wasn't a 9 till 5 sit at a desk type person. That's not me at all. And I think I probably knew that before I went into consultancy, and probably where the consultancy came from, because the great thing about consultancy is you're dealing with different things, different people, different clients, different organisations all the time. And I think that's still true now when businesses join Cuckoo Connect one of the first things that we do to engage with them is almost to say, what's your story? How have you got into it? What do you do? Because that tells you about the person. It tells you about their USPs, their skills. So then actually when we're thinking about connecting them to other businesses or clients or partners, we know so much more about them because we know about the person as well as the business.
How about you, Stephen? Any history of family entrepreneurs?
None. No, I'm the anomaly in my family, actually. Most of my family still live in small towns in Derbyshire, etc. But my mum and dad have always instilled a really good work ethic in me, and they've all, and I have got them to thank for a lot of my thinking and the way I think. But definitely, yeah, I'm the anomaly, and I quite like that.
Did you always see yourself eventually becoming a business owner or an entrepreneur from your younger days?
No. It sort of found me, I think, and yeah, I think it just sort of found me, and then as soon as I did it, it made perfect sense, because I thought, well, as Philip said earlier, I don't like being told what to do, not in a sort of petulant, childish way. It doesn't sit well with me. I think that I know best.
Just kind of sort of the same thing.
Well, sort of. No, but I like to make my own decisions because I like to be responsible for my own decisions, whether they're the right ones or the wrong ones. And I like the ownership that comes with that. And so, yeah, as soon as I became self-employed, I thought, of course, this is what I was born to do.
And when you made that transition from going to self-employed, what was the support like from your family and friends?
Amazing. My family have always 100% supported anything I've chosen to do, as wacky as that's been over the years. Friends have been really supportive. Yeah, everyone's been really supportive, and I think you should be. If you're someone that's thinking about going self-employed, if anyone's not being supportive towards you, then, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, edit them out of the picture, because you need all the support that you can get, and you need people to believe in you. But most importantly, obviously, you need to believe yourself that you can do it. But yeah, loads of support. I was really lucky.
So onto the networking, connecting side of things. There's obviously a lot of networking groups that are out there. You guys are really causing a big stir and sort of disrupting that. That's certainly how I see it anyway, from watching your social media posts and seeing the type of events you hold. It's clearly something very different. But if you could sort of pinpoint it to 2 or 3 things, what is it that is so different about the Cuckoo Connect events?
I think that we didn't go out with a business plan. So, maybe some business people will say, oh, really, you need to have a very formal, really thought about, research, considered, almost there's this exercise book of how to set up a business.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think sometimes when other people are looking to start in business, these are some of the things that can put people off, and it's procrastination, thinking, I have to have a business plan, I'm going to have to stick to it.
Yes.
But actually that's not what you found from KuKu.
No, I think it's nice that it's organically grown for us, because it's meant that we can lead not only with our head but also with our heart as well, because I think you need to be happy doing what you're doing. And I think sometimes you can focus too much on this business plan and think, okay, right, I need to be doing this now. I need to be selling this many cups of coffee. I need to be doing, and it might be a case of, actually, you don't need to sell coffee. You need to sell this. And I think you've got, like with any plan, it's got to be flexible, but you've got to be happy as well.
And I think Stephen talked about this earlier, that both of us before KuKu had been to lots of networking things, and actually we just picked up on things that we liked ourselves, what we didn't like, what we found boring. And I particularly found, and we both talked about this, that we'd often be at a networking thing and we'd be at the back of the room with a load of other businesses being there who were all complaining about the networking event that they were at, saying, waste of time, boring, isn't this boring? You'd be listening to a presentation, someone trying to essentially sell something to you. So a lot of it came out of businesses just wanting, or what we'd picked up, obviously, particularly Stephen sort of talking about, they wanted something that was fresh, a bit different, more alternative, maybe more authentic, maybe more genuine. So we just set out to, we wouldn't necessarily have said words like, we've set out to change the landscape of networking. Back then, we would just, in our words would be, we want to do something different. But actually that's what subconsciously we were trying to do, is actually to do something different that people actually enjoyed. Because actually, if you're going to a networking thing and you think, oh, this is a really boring work chore, you're not really going to be the best networker at that event at that evening. But actually, if you think, wow, actually, I'm quite looking forward to going to this KuKu thing this evening, I'm going to be at a Lexus showroom or a castle or a gin distillery or a jeweller, somewhere I've never been before, somewhere quirky, somewhere brand new. that inspires people. And actually, when you're talking about decision makers and business owners, there's a great buzz when you get decision makers in the same place. But actually, decision makers usually are very hard workers, because as we know, working for yourself is bloody hard work. But we're all doing it for different aspirational reasons. So for some people, it might be they want to be their own boss. Some people want to be in control of their time. They're following a passion. Some people want to make loads of money. They want to have that perfect house, that watch, car, wonderful holidays, family time. So actually, you take people to places where they aspire and they think, well, I do want that car, or yeah, I want to go to these nice places to eat.
They sort of get to smell the leather of
and that's not to say that they're not there. Actually, a lot of them are already there. Yeah. But it's just this subconscious reminder of, this is why I'm doing this really, really hard thing. This is why I'm working hard, because I'm doing it for these aspirational reasons, which are different for people. I think one of the things that makes KuKu different is that we're not a law firm Monday to Friday, and then once a month we are a networking thing, because there's a different motivation, different agenda, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But actually, KuKu is quite distinctly different from most of the other networking things that we've come across. Not necessarily in that we're a better thing, but the thing that makes us different is that KuKu Connect is a full-time thing, and actually there's so much more to networking that KuKu can offer in terms of, how businesses engage with us and what they get out of it. Because we all often talk about, okay, I've been to a networking, how do I make it worthwhile? What do I get out of it? So actually, KuKu Connect offers support and a whole range of services around getting something out of the networks that businesses build.
Yeah. So you have the 3 monthly meets. There's the Lincolnshire, the Derbyshire, and the Leicestershire. And each month within those within those areas, you're actually meeting at a different location every time to keep it fresh.
So we call them Connect receptions. They always take place in the evening. So obviously Stephen wouldn't get up in the morning. No. But 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. is, we think, a great time to do networking, because actually business people are slightly more relaxed. Their phones aren't going, their emails aren't pinging. They're not thinking, as sometimes you'll at breakfast things, thinking, right, what have I got on today? I've got this meeting, I've got to go. People are in a much more relaxed sort of
sociable mood, aren't they? I think we're starting to see as well now every so often, which is really nice, that little groups of people that have come to the Connect receptions are then staying on at the venue to enjoy some social drinks. And I think that I always love to see that, because it shows that it's proof the networking's working. You're getting to know this person, you're getting to trust them. And I think in business, trust is a huge thing.
And also that people always say it, people buy from people, but actually, that's very much what happens through Cuckoo Connect, because it's not a forced robotic approach to networking. It's not overly formatted. It's very informal. It's relaxed. So people are getting to know people, and at the same time, they're getting to know about their business.
How do you pick the locations?
Well, it's interesting actually, because one of the purposes of going to a whole range of different businesses is our way of kind of championing, supporting great businesses, organisations that are contributing to the region in some way. And they might be contributing to inward investment or culture, tourism, heritage. So we've been to museums, we've been to brand new organisations that have just opened. We've been to a whole array of things. But essentially, the key thing is this somewhere that people in general might find interesting to go to? And then secondly, have they got an interesting product or service that is of a quality level, and can that potential host venue provide good customer service? And we go with the idea that if you're in, I don't know, a city centre, if you go to the most expensive restaurant, wherever that is, if the service of that place is not so great, then that's not the right place for KuKu. Because actually, no one likes to go to a place where the service is a bit rubbish.
And so you feel your locations really are a reflection of the brand KuKu itself. It has to live up to your own standards and expectations.
Oh, yes.
It does have to
very much,
meet our expectations, definitely. Yeah.
And it's not to say that, you've got to be a terribly fancy place, or, you've got to be the most expensive, or you've got to be the best. We have a whole array. And actually, again, when you talk to businesses about networking, they'll say, oh, we go to the same old place, it's the same old faces. So all these complaints that businesses talk about networking, waste of time, it's not decision makers, not the right level of businesses, that all went into the melting pot when, we were thinking of setting up, KuKu, which at the time was a pilot, because actually back in 2015, 2016 in Leicestershire, a lot of people said it won't work. It's saturated here with networking. How will it be different? And there were people that I would say almost sort of actively trying to encourage us not to do, but we'd always had a great belief in the concept. What we needed to do was essentially try it, and then if actual people, if they used it and said great things, then we'll worry about that when that happens. But actually, it started with a splash and then just built and built and built. And Stephen said earlier that Derbyshire then came along. We did some work out in Rutland. Lincolnshire launched last year. Got exciting plans going into this year and next year. But they've not been part of a grand plan, which sometimes we're oft. It's because KuKu has always been there to support businesses, and we actually probably do a lot more support of all sorts of initiatives and organisations than necessarily we do from a pay-for business point of view. But that's the purpose of KuKu. It's about connecting but also supporting businesses. And I think that's why then organisations and individual people say to us, when are we getting one? When you come into our area? We're asked literally every week, do you do one here? Will you come here? We could really do with KuKu in our area to support businesses.
Which should be great for us. It's very tempting to say, yeah, we'll come to this county, we'll come to that county, but we want to focus on our existing members and continuing to deliver for them and making sure that they feel they're getting enough out of the membership. Whereas if we were to spread ourselves so thinly across the UK, then I think that could be a bit disastrous for us. So it's important for us to recognise...
It's just keeping the quality,
keep the quality levels there and recognise our own capacities as well as a business.
Yeah, because, scaling up and exponential growth is all very good, but it brings with it a lot of problems.
And we're very cautious of it because, it'd be very easy to listen to other people that don't know necessarily the background or the processes or how something works, for them to say, we want to be over in Burton and you want to come to so-and-so, we'd love you to come here. That's just kind of a top level thought from someone, which, is great for them to say and is positive. But actually, for the mechanics of what we do to work, there are some kind of key ingredients and things that need to be there for it to thrive.
How many members do you have now?
200 plus, I think.
Over 200 now.
Can you remember how many turned up to your first event?
Actually, we did quite well, actually, didn't we?
We had... So the original launch was about 120.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad for a first event then, is it?
It was all right, yeah. We blasted the invitations. Yeah. We were carefully selected people, and we also blasted it at the same time, if that makes sense.
And this was in Leicestershire, where there was a lot of people actively telling you that it wasn't going to work because it was saturated.
Interestingly, and I know he won't mind me saying, but we had our original launch at a fantastic jewellers in Leicester called Lumbers. Very successful, and they're one of the top jewellers, I'd say, in the region. You can get stuff there that you couldn't really get anywhere else apart from London. And they were very supportive, but they were very business focused, and actually they just thought, I think he kind of saw something in us that he liked and thought, well, we'll have a go. But actually the business decision for them was, if it can bring me in a new audience and bring new people into the jewellers, then I'll be happy. Because they'd said, I'm not giving you my list of people because they're already my customers. And they said, I think you're being very brave. I hope it goes very well, but I think you're being very brave because it's very saturated. I'm often asked to things and I never go to them because they're not effective and a waste of time. And actually now, Lumbers have been a great supporter of ours. We're a supporter of them, ever since.
But we do work really hard to bring in new faces every month in all the counties, and it is hard work to do that, but we like to try and have probably a 50-50 balance of members at a reception versus new faces. So if you're in a lazy mood, you can talk to the people that that you see month in, month out, or if you're wanting to meet new people, they're there for you in the room to meet. And that is one of the things that we work really hard on doing, is continually growing our database.
And how do you do that? What are your most effective marketing channels? Is it more referrals from members who are already part of the group, or are you proactively promoting the business
Yeah, it's a selection of everything really. We use we obviously use social media a lot, as you've seen, and that's really useful for us. We do a lot of connecting around the county ourselves, and word of mouth actually seems to do really well for us as well. We often hear of people saying, "Oh, I've heard of you, such and such has said such great things about you," which is lovely to hear, because it shows that we're doing something right.
Yeah. Interesting, we've never ever done any paid for advertising. No. And that's not to say that's right for every business.
Strange when there's a marketing business.
We found that actually that organic spread, that word of mouth, that referral, have you been to, have you tried, and then kind of utilising the, harnessing the power of sort of social media, LinkedIn, but also doing it in a very visual way. People that might be familiar with Cuckoo Connect will know that we do a lot of video and that we use a lot of imagery and pictures. We're doing that actually because we're usually promoting another business, a venue, wherever that will be, or an organisation. So at the same time we're supporting them and promoting them, but also that we know, if we're all very honest with ourselves, if you've got someone talking about, website security or tax going digital, really important things for businesses, but actually when we're scrolling down our LinkedIn feed and on our mobile phones, they're not the things that we stop to look for, unless we're looking for that specifically. But we might stop for a few minutes to look at something to do with gin, or a nice place to eat, or the theatre, or a car, because we're all people as well as business people.
And we recognise as well that as a concept, the Cuckoo Connect receptions are sometimes a lot to take on board to understand exactly how they work. So at every reception, we'll always put together a video that showcases the venue, showcases the people that are there. We might showcase a member, and so it sort of gives you a sort of a 4 or 5 minute snapshot of what happens at a Connect reception. And they're all there sitting on our website and our news page, so if anyone ever wants to look, they're there.
Yeah, and all the links will be included at the show notes at benjaminbrain.co.uk/Cuckoo-Connect. So if anybody wants to check them out, definitely give those a click. So I can imagine there's a lot of work that people don't see that goes into arranging events like this.
A huge amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, we're talking 2016 now, but can you remember, or if you had to pick a challenge that stands out the most, and to get this off the ground and to really get it happening on a consistent basis, what was your biggest challenge during those first 12 months?
We probably had different ones. My biggest challenge was probably the brand awareness, to really get that brand out there. So obviously, with my background, I created the brand for it, so quite confident with that. But it was just to get people to understand the concept of what this exactly is, because we don't like to use the word networking too much, because there are unfortunately negative connotations associated with that word. And so how could we educate the business community on what this was? So that was my biggest challenge, and that's why the videos take place, really, just because I think you can sit back, you can watch it, and you can learn.
Yeah, I understand. There's a bit of a dichotomy, isn't there? Because people understand what networking is, but there's also those connotations. So you don't want to describe yourself as a networking business. Hence, Cuckoo Connect. But then if you use Connect, then people maybe not sure
exactly
what it's really all about.
Exactly.
So a big way that you overcame that was with the video. So showing people what the events were like.
Yeah, and also business owners are invited to join us free of charge to try us out once as well, and so that's a great way, obviously the best way to know if it's for you or not. Come along, be our guest, have something to eat, something to drink in a nice venue, make some contacts, and there's no pictures, presentations or push, so we won't be chasing you afterwards saying join our network. We'll send you an email the next day just saying this is what membership includes, but that's it. And I think the no pressure element really sits well with me personally.
Okay, Philip, biggest challenge for the first 12 months, what would you say?
I think it was probably around the Connect reception hosts, so essentially finding different places, particularly in the first year, because there was no precedent, so people didn't know. They'd never heard of what Cuckoo Connect was, they'd never heard of it as a brand, so trying to persuade and find, well, just in terms of actually getting through to communicate to a decision maker that said yes, come and use our venue, or come and do a business, is, that was one of the challenges. Finding a suitable launch venue was a challenge, making sure that we'd got a good amount of people there. Again, going back to the launch, people were thinking that we'd struggle to get 50 people there, or we got over 100 people there. So I think at that stage, people early on thought, oh, this is a bit different because actually they've got some good people here. And I remember people saying, there's a really nice buzz. There are lots of people I don't know. Again, a common complaint of networking is same old faces. And yeah, we were really pleased with that. But I think the challenge has always been, certainly in the first year, was being able to find places to hold the Connect receptions. And probably, again, in that first year, probably the big challenge was we'd had this very glitzy, well-received launch, and then it was, right, people, are you going to come and utilise it? Are you going to become a member? Or are you going to start utilising it? So then our very first Connect reception, which was in November 2016, was at a gin bar, which is still there in Leicester. We were both panicking because we were thinking we're not going to get anyone coming, we're going to get like 10 people there. So then from basically doing this showcase type of event where you got over 100 people to then having 10 people, we just thought, oh, people are going to go, oh, this is now complete opposite to what I saw and thought of as the launch. But actually we probably had about 40 people there, which was really good going, and things just went and built up from there. And also that we kind of knew it at the time, but we certainly learnt in those first few months that people often ask, how many people go to your networking event? And they're used to people going, oh, we've only got 5 or 10 people. And of course people go, well, that's no use to me. Then sometimes people, then when you say, well, there'll be 100, 200 people in the room, they'll go, oh, well, I'll go to that. But then we often thought, well, actually, are you within the space of a couple of hours going to be able to have a good quality conversation with 200 people? No, you're not. So actually, are you better having good numbers but not too many? And actually, 200 people in a room, noisy, busy, hard to get around. Unless you're a very confident networker, that puts a lot of people off. So, things built from there. And we were always quality over numbers. I mean, now, you'll get between sort of 70 and 90 businesses at the Connect receptions in general, dependent on the space that we have, because sometimes we will close the guest list to make sure that the numbers are suitable. So, yeah.
And when you set such a high bar for yourselves for these networking events, I presume that must be a challenge as well, because once you've set a certain level of expectation of what a KuKu reception is going to be like, you have to be really focused on at least meeting that for the next events.
Yeah, but I think it comes down to our values personally as well. Like we kind of expect the best when we go to places as well, so we wouldn't naturally we wouldn't let our values slip with our Connect receptions.
Yeah, I think that we've been very fortunate throughout life and before KuKu to have gone to lots of places that allow us to know what's good quality and what isn't from a service or a standards point of view, so that certainly helps. And we've always been interested in things like travel, food, drink, nice things, so that certainly helps. But there are two elements to the Connect reception. One is that the networking can happen and is going well, and that sort of happens organically with the way that we do KuKu. But actually the Connect receptions in some ways are actually quite different each time, because they'll take on a different characteristic dependent on which business is hosting. And that's actually very important, because the Connect reception host is very much a showcase about that business, not only to businesses that come to, but the businesses, thousands of businesses that see, hear and watch the video, the content that goes online. And actually sometimes the Connect receptions will be a bit different because we're in different places. And if they were the exact same thing, I think that people would eventually find that the appeal had gone. And again, people always say to us, I really like KuKu because we go to different places. It keeps it fresh, it keeps it appeal.
Now, if you could go back to the beginning of KuKu Connect and you could pick one moment that you would say is your most proudest or your biggest success so far, what would yours be, Stephen?
Probably...
I have a few.
I think the first birthday, we held the first birthday at Lumber's again, but I think that was a really proud moment for me, because I thought, oh, we've made it to a year, and we've got members, and it's working. That's a proud moment. Beaver Castle was really special as well, because that was such a huge event in such a grand setting. There's so many proud moments, to be honest. I think I probably have a proud moment every week.
Okay, good
Which
answer.
is what keeps us doing it.
Yeah, most definitely. Philip, if you could pick just one of your many.
One. Well,
yeah.
Well, Stephen's talked about a couple of them. So at the annual birthday events, which is our October regional event, they're always a really proud moment, because it's about celebrating all the businesses that have been part of KuKu over that past year. It's also a great party as well. So, it gives you a moment to reflect and think, oh, we've done this, over the last year. So it just makes you think, we've given something back and some value to KuKu and to the businesses we work with. Buckingham Palace would probably be an obvious one, but I don't know what to pick there. So we were invited to one of the Queen's Garden parties last year.
Of course. How can I forget about that?
Well, there's so many, isn't there?
I know, that's a proud moment.
Yeah, so that was a proud
actually.
thing, because we were invited to one of the garden parties for KuKu's impact on local businesses and our support of the community, which is very, very nice. But actually, one of the things, a more recent one, I wouldn't necessarily it's my proudest, but it's a little thing that I did think, that a business approached us and asked whether or not we would come to their new office branch launch, and we would come and do the ribbon cutting and say a few words. And Stephen was actually away, so I went along and said a few words, read a little speech, cut the ribbon, had some photographs, and I just thought, we've obviously created something where businesses, I don't know, it sounds a bit funny to use words like people feel that we can add something, or that we can add credence, or that we're special enough or thought well of enough by other businesses that they'd ask us to come and do something like that. And it was a little bit surreal, because you usually have someone like someone from the television or the local mayor or something to do something like that. And I just thought, that was special that someone had thought, I guess, enough of us and KuKu to invite us to come and do something that would have been a really special pride moment for them as a business, because they'd gone to the extent of doing a ribbon cutting and those sorts of things. So I think that was probably something I just thought, that was really nice that we've created something with KuKu that businesses think of us in that way.
I think another thing as well, I know it could potentially sound a bit cheesy, but I really enjoy hearing when you hear evidence of members connecting and doing business with one another. And I know it sounds obvious, but it's just really nice to hear that, because it's evidence that it's working, and that you've in some way facilitated that.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear all of these success stories, because you've gone from having a concept, being told that it's not going to work, to building this massive community. You're being invited to the Queen's Garden party, you're cutting ribbons, you're being featured on the front cover of magazines, because you've had that belief in yourself and that confidence and that passion to do what you're good at.
Yeah,
well,
that makes me feel proud.
Yeah, but I think actually that and I don't know whether or not we do necessarily have that belief in ourselves. I think that we've always just had a great belief in businesses and pulling out their stories and pulling out what makes them different, so that we can connect with them and engage with them. I think that's probably what we we enjoy.
We work really hard as well, to be honest. We do work really hard, don't we?
Yeah, and I think that's represented, certainly from what I've seen in the videos and the images. You can see that there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Everybody's having a great time. You've got some great locations, great refreshments and food and drink. So you tick all the boxes from what I've seen, even though I've not actually been to one yet, but that's definitely going to change.
You need to get yourself down there.
Most definitely.
Yes.
So we've talked about your proudest moment. We're on a high at the minute. I want to flip that now.
No.
I want to know, has there been a particularly dark moment, or what would you say you were at your downest? Was there an event that really sort of knocked you off course, or anything you can think of?
Yeah, I know I mentioned the Beaver Castle event as a high moment, which it truly was, but it was also a hard job as well, and that was purely because of what we put on ourselves. We wanted to put on a really special event, but that brought with it so much responsibility and so much planning, and there were times during that where I personally thought, oh God, what have we done here? And through no fault of our own, really, just from setting our bar so high. So there were low moments during that period where I just thought, I don't think this event's going to happen. But as with everything, you've got to continue believing in it and making sure that, yes, you have got your plans in place, you can do it, you just got to put that little bit more fuel in the tank.
Yeah, and I think with that example that, it got to exhaustion point, just because of capacity, I think, in terms of doing everything and pulling everything off, and also with a small team. We also then had the hiccup, and without mentioning any names, one of the sponsors, a key one of the sponsors, because they were going to be providing quite a lot of the drink for the evening, I think less than 48 hours before the event, just told us that they couldn't be part of it anymore, and with no particular reason. So essentially what it meant is we'd not only got this huge event with lots of people coming, with this great long plan of you be there, I've got to do that, you do that, speeches, these sorts of things. And it suddenly dawned on us that we'd got no glasses and no wine for 400 odd people.
And then factor in as well the logistical issues of working with a castle, where you can't go through certain areas and there's no lift, and you've got to suddenly transport 500 glasses and bottles.
What did you do?
Stress.
We just made it work. Made it work.
Yeah. We
had some family and some friends that helped as well.
I mean, I do want to say, I do need to do a thank you to my mum and dad actually for that, because they help at all our events every month, and they were lugging stuff around as well, and they're in their 60s, and I just thought, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a shout out to Stephen's mum and dad.
Yeah, I'm so pleased they didn't die during that period. They worked so hard.
I suppose that's a good example of something that was tremendous, as well as was very, very hard work. And I think sometimes now, whenever you mention the annual birthday event, because we've had 3 now, we'll be planning number 4 for October this year. Stephen always has a bit of a
I get a little ulcer just starts to grow in my stomach.
But I think that from my point of view, I don't think there's necessarily been any one time. I think whatever business you'll go through peaks and troughs of sometimes feeling really low, unmotivated. I'm sure that so many of us have thought, God, why am I doing this? Wouldn't it be so much nicer to be in a employed job where I get sick pay and I get holiday and all these nice things? But then actually when you get the high of the peaks, where you're thinking, you're really motivated, enthusiastic, and you think, I'd never go back to working for someone else 9 to 5 at a desk, it makes it all worthwhile. But I think one of the things that still affects both of us is when somebody will go, I don't get it, and I don't understand it, I don't want to engage with it. And that's not to say that they're complaining about it. It's someone that that almost gives an objection, not wanting to. And it's very hard not to take it. It's not that we take it personally, but the feelings as if someone's saying something bad about you. But I think that's because we're both so very passionate about what we do, that we just think, oh, someone said something mean about us.
Yeah.
And we take it to heart.
And I think probably a lot of business owners could probably relate to that, because you are passionate about your business. And if someone's not happy with one of your products or services, or just doesn't get it, like Philip said, then it's going to hit you as a person.
Yeah.
I think it's about just thinking, okay, well, that's what it is. Again, put it to one side. It's not important in the grand scheme of things.
And going back to those lower moments. So, for example, Stephen, you talked about thinking, oh gosh, should we really be doing this event? And Philip, you've mentioned in any business there's the peaks and the troughs. How do you keep yourself going when those thoughts do surface?
Do you know what? I have a photo that I sometimes look at, which was my old office in one of my old jobs, and I was so depressed in that job. And sometimes I look at that photo and I think, thank God I'm not there.
Wow, yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a bit like, it's so important for me to look at that. But it's just about reminding yourself that, okay, yeah, I'm having a rubbish day, everything's going wrong, but what's my alternative? Throw all this away that I've worked so hard to build, and then go back to the life that you were desperately trying to leave beforehand. So you just have to take a step back, take a breath, and look at the bigger picture.
I think, from my point of view, I think you just, if it's a useful tip anyway, you just go and surround yourself around positive people. And actually sometimes, it might have been coming up to a Connect reception that's been particularly fraught, or there are other things happening which have taken up time, and you just feel a bit low and demotivated. But actually, and sometimes you'll think, oh, we've got a Connect reception this evening, I'm really tired out, I'd like to be at home with my feet up on the sofa. But actually then when you get into one of those Connect receptions, I suppose there's this flood of positive energy, because you've got people that think great things about KuKu, great things about us. They're all buzzing away, networking and talking, and actually, it's in a way almost like it is. So actually, that just go and surround yourself with some positive people, and also be able to be disciplined and learn, once you've got your business off the ground, that you need to then sometimes take a break to think, I've done well, or just to take a break to relax and find things that can actually switch your mind off. So I think a lot of people struggle to switch their mind off from business and emails and the phones and the social media. But what you also have to do is make sure that you can just switch all of that off. Otherwise, you just never relax.
Yeah. Okay, and some brilliant insights there. And thank you for being so open and honest as well, because these are questions that not everybody would feel comfortable with, but we're all about, sharing our experiences to help others as well. So on that front, I think you two have not only created a successful networking event, to say the least, you've also created a successful business out of it as well. For somebody who may be thinking of starting their own networking event that's not obviously in a patch that you guys are operating in, because there's no point, because they'll all be going to Cuckoo Connect, but what would be the one thing, what would be the first step for them? If you could just give them one tip that's going to help them produce something that lasts and people enjoy turning up to, and that people take something away from, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I'd like to just touch upon just what you said about the competition, because we actually get asked this quite a lot about, the competition in the region, but we never really genuinely look at it as competition. We're very collaborative people, and we always say networking isn't something that you have to choose one of and then go to that. We go to all of the networking events, find the ones that work for you. So, we see other networking events crop up here, there and everywhere, and it's great. It's great. Do what you're doing. The advice I'd give to someone if they were setting one up is be authentic. Like, do what you want to do. Deliver what you want to deliver. Don't look at that one and copy that, or don't do that because they're doing that. Just be authentically you, and you'll succeed.
Okay, great tip. Philip?
I think probably really understand why you're doing it. What's your motivation? What are you doing? What's the purpose of it? Because if the purpose of you deciding to do something that's around networking to maybe promote your photography business or your HR services or your law firm, or you are a venue place and you think, right, we'll do our own networking thing. Really understand why you're doing it, but then understand how is it going to appeal to people, why should they come, what's in it for them, what will they get out of it. Because it's no good anymore, I don't think, just basically going, right, I'll invite a load of people into a space, into a room, and then hopefully something will go. I think I always say this to people when they're trying to engage with other businesses. Remember that business people we're not aliens. We're like everybody else. Some things will annoy us. Some things will bore us. We all like a slice of pizza. We all like putting our feet up at the weekend. So actually, if you can relate to other people and what they like and what they don't like and find something that works, then I think that that could be something. But I think be creative. I was talking to an organisation that we're supporting, and they were saying, we're organising, this is really before we got into them, we're organising a breakfast networking thing, would you come and talk at it? And I said, well, firstly, what do you want me to talk about? Because there's no point in me coming to basically talk about Cuckoo Connect in terms of this is what we do, because it looks like it's just an advert. So I think people find that as a little bit boring. But so have a think about that. So have a think about what you want me to say that's talking about you and your organisation, because that's partly what it is. But also that, the format of, they were doing a breakfast networking thing, fine. But I would have said to them is, how many other breakfast networking things are there that are either going to be serving cold croissants and a bit of fruit and some awful instant coffee, or they're doing a not particularly nice bacon sandwich where actually you think, this bread's a bit plastic, I'm pulling all the fat off, like I would do. I said to them, do something interesting. I said, don't call it breakfast, do a brunch, do eggs Benedict, do salmon, do something. I said people might find that a little bit different. So I think it's just being a bit different and being a bit more creative is what we would say. But understand what you're doing it for, because if you are trying to do it for your business gain and your personal gain, that's fine, but people will very quickly see that, and if they don't think there's something in it for them, they will quickly go, because in business we're all very, very busy people, and that's why people are so very cutting about networking sometimes, is because we don't have the time to be everywhere, go to everything. You could network morning, day and night if you wanted to, nearly every day, but people decide to go to certain ones because it suits them as a personality, it suits their business, it suits their sector, and it suits them as their personality and the style of person.
Now, from a guest side of things, particularly for maybe somebody who's thought of networking but hasn't managed to usually pluck up the courage to go and meet a load of new people and have to engage in conversation, what would be your one tip for that person that's sat at home right now that knows it will be good for them and their business but just hasn't been able to force themselves out there, and probably force isn't the right word?
I would say first of all, you absolutely need to do it, not be nervous about it. And I would say when you're at the event, I know it sounds a bit of a contradiction, but don't overly talk about your business. And I think because if you approach someone and just start giving them your elevator pitch in a natural conversation, it can become a bit boring and maybe a little bit too pushy. And so we always say to people, if you're a little bit nervous and you're not sure what to talk about, then talk about anything other than your business. Talk about the venue, the food, where you've come from, or what the person's wearing, anything, just to sort of just to connect with them on that different level. So you're not selling to them. You can weave in what you do and sell to them during the conversation, or give them a business card and follow up afterwards, but just have a nice conversation.
Think you're on a date. So ask all of those old-fashioned date questions. Have you been here before? But actually, they are easy things much easier to say, or do you live locally? Have you been to this venue before? Have you been to this networking group before? So just ask questions that you find easy asking anyone.
I don't try and be this. I think sometimes people think, I'm in business now, I need to be this corporate, robotic, stiff person. Just be yourself. You don't need to be that person.
Yeah, so as the name suggests, Cuckoo Connect, just go there to connect with people, and you never know what might come off the back
exactly,
of that.
Yeah. You might get a date.
A bonus, yes, definitely. So you guys are obviously successful in business yourself. You meet an awful lot of other successful business owners and entrepreneurs. If you could each pick maybe 2 or 3 attributes that you think are required to be successful in business that you've seen are most frequently out there, what would you say, Stephen?
I would say tenacity. Don't give up. You're going to fail a few times. Belief in what you're doing as well, and enjoy what you're doing.
Okay, Philip?
Be yourself and really let your personality come through, because that essentially is helping you to build a brand. Hard work. It will be very, very hard work, but for people that are thinking, I just don't know if I've got that motivation or willpower, what I've found is when you start doing it and it becomes routine, you get used to it as if it was never before. And I'll often say, since KuKu started, I've never worked as hard as I ever have done.
But it's not so much always work, is it? Because actually, if you're enjoying it, sometimes before you know,
it turns
the day's
into
gone.
a different thing.
Yeah,
it turns into a different.
It's
thing.
your life, isn't it? The two have to almost blend together in a way.
And be passionate and enjoy what you're doing.
What are some of the benefits that you found of being a business owner?
I love being able to think, I'm having an awful day, right, I'm going to the gym, and then I'm going to sit in the spa. And I love being able to think, there's a pottery class on next week, I'm going to do that pottery class. Just the freedom, just the thing, I can do what I want, actually, and nobody can tell me what to do.
Very good one. Philip?
There is all of that side of it, and you still have to kind of find that balance of discipline as to know how much time you can take away from the business. But that is a luxury, because you are the one that decides that that Monday morning you're going to have an extra hour in bed, or you're going to go and meet someone for lunch, or do something with children or family. I think the thing that I found, and this kind of goes back to when I was much younger, doing a lot of my kind of community stuff, which at that time, that was a real passion for me. I really enjoyed it. I found it really rewarding. One of the things that I feel very proud about and feel very fortunate around is that KuKu has built so much of a level that it now has a platform and a resource to support people, to support other businesses, to support community organisations and charities. And it allows me to go, right, I'm going to go and sit on the committee for organising, as I do. So there's an annual charity polo tournament out in Rutland each year. I sit on the committee for that, and I also sometimes am able to then suggest some of the charities that benefit from that event. I find that a real privilege that KuKu has allowed me to be able to do, because actually if you're working for someone else 9 till 5 at the desk, you're not going to be able to go off for a whole morning, once a month to a meeting for something that's nothing to do with your work and your employer. I think it's really special that people talk about CSR a lot. We don't have a CSR program. We just go and help and do a lot of stuff. And I think the fact that KuKu has been able to do something that can support organisations and events like that, but also allows me the time to take a bit of time out to do that is a great privilege.
So we've talked about the benefits of being a business owner there. What are some of the misconceptions that you think people have about being a business owner, the downsides that people perhaps don't think about?
The downsides are that, yes, you do need the discipline to get the work done, and that can have an effect on you and take its toll on you, because there is nobody saying you have to be here. So sometimes, personally speaking, there's quite an internal struggle. Like, I really am not feeling it today. How do I actually find the strength and the inspiration to carry on? And that was quite surprising for me to find. And also the obvious downside that when you start the business, you probably won't make money for the first year, if not longer, and everyone else's life is going on. Maybe in the first year you're having to put in every hour God sends to get this business off the ground, so you'll miss parties, you'll miss family events, you might struggle to get here, there and everywhere. And so there it does really take everything in you, I think, to get a business off the ground, and that obviously has its own downsides.
Great answer. Philip?
I think, going on from what Stephen said, that if you are running a business, whether or not you're a partnership or just yourself, it is a constant animal, sometimes monster, that there is never really a moment you completely switch off, because it is a constant thing. It constantly needs to be fed. It's constantly got to looked after and maintained, because if it hasn't, you'll certainly see it just kind of sliding down and down and down, and because essentially you're not looking after your clients or providing that service. So I think that's something. On the money side, I think sometimes maybe there's a perception, and maybe perhaps to younger people, that actually you go into business or entrepreneurship and you make money overnight or in the first year, where in fact actually a lot of business people go into business or set up to business and all they're doing is making about the same amount of money as they were in the paid job. And actually that's a real achievement in itself, to be able to build something up that's paying all your bills, but then still giving you the wage that you'd been useful from whatever career you'd come out of. And it's not about that actually you're going to make loads and loads of money. It means that you are in control of what you're doing and you've got some of those benefits that you can tap into. The other thing that I would say sometimes is, and we have noticed this, that it can have an impact on relationships with family, partners, husbands and wives, children, friends, because there'll be times where you basically go, I can't be at that, I can't come to it, I can't see you, I can't do that, I'm not in touch or ringing you as much as I would be. And unless you're in business, no one really understands that, because they're usually the person thinking, oh, I don't hear from them very much.
But I think actually, just to pick up on that, it's people always talk about the work-life balance, and I don't entirely believe in that, because I think when you're self-employed, I don't believe in it, because I think when you're self-employed, your business is your life. It's not like a job that you're doing 9 till 5. And like what Philip says, it's about just knowing that you've almost had a child, and that child always needs you, even when you're on holiday. And I think anyone going into business needs to be very aware of that.
It sometimes means tough decisions as well, as in, no, I can't come to that, no, I can't help. I'd love to, but I can't. And even though you hope those people understand, at times they won't, because they will just be feeling a bit left out or a bit sad and upset. So I think it's just something to be aware of and something just to monitor. And then when you do have your downtime, although, as we said, you never quite switch off, just remember to spend that time with the people that you want in your life and the people you care for, and have that as a, when you've not got your business head on, you've got your personal social head on, make that your number one kind of priority, because you can very slowly almost become slightly disconnected. and then suddenly you'll wake up one day and think, oh, I've not made any effort or done such and such. And I think sometimes people, particularly kind of people in that have run businesses or business coaches, will always talk about people that are running their business, but they're actually doing their business. So they're a bit like in a hamster cage, and they can't get out because if they took a day off, there's no one to open the shop or no one to do such and such. And actually the key thing is building a business that, yes, you do some of the day-to-day stuff, but if you can build it to an extent where you don't have to do everything, then you can spend more of your time running and directing your business, but then also having a little bit of a life as well, as opposed to constantly doing the operations and the day-to-day and then trying to run and develop a business, because they're two slightly different things.
Now, Philip, if you could take the best piece of advice that you think has ever been passed on to you, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to cheat and say I've got more than one, but they're two very quick things. One is, if you've ever thought about, or you've got this burning passion of doing something for yourself, do it. Don't wait 10 years to do it. You know, if anything, I would have loved to have started doing what we're doing now 10 years before we did.
And you, Stephen, the best piece of advice that you've received?
It's not necessarily a piece of advice, but it's something that I was told once, and I do hold it with me all the time, that everything's temporary. And I know that probably doesn't initially sound like it's connected to business, but I do keep that in my head, because I think the moment you start thinking, oh, this business is going well, I'll take my foot off the gas, then that's when someone will come and snatch it away from you. So I always think everything's temporary, so keep working at it.
Yeah, that's a good perspective, because usually when people talk about quotes of that nature, they're thinking about the bad times. The bad times are temporary, but actually you need to realise that sometimes the good times are temporary as well.
Be prepared for that, and have a plan in place and for when things do change.
Now, taking that advice to the next step, if you could visit your 21-year-old selves and you could pass on just one piece of advice that you think was most needed at the time, what would it be for you, Stephen?
I think you need quite a few.
No, do you know what? Part of me thinks I would say don't change a thing.
That's a good answer.
To be honest. Yeah. I don't have any regrets.
Okay.
Yeah.
A life well lived so far.
Yeah.
Philip?
I wouldn't say necessarily I've got any regrets. I just wish that maybe that all of the things that I'm doing I would have started maybe a little bit earlier. And maybe I think that because then I think, well, I would have been happier at those times in terms of doing what I'm doing now. And if we were 10 years ahead, where would that have taken us? But then at the same time, then if I did that, I wouldn't have necessarily had some of the experiences and built up some of the networks that I did with the things that I was doing when I was younger. And essentially when I was younger, I was far more interested in socialising and parties. And actually, if I didn't do that, then we wouldn't be good at doing the Connect receptions, because they are, in a way, a very meticulous party. The annual birthday event is again, one of the purposes of that was to do an event that was not like anyone else's business event or annual business event. So, yeah, maybe Stephen's right. Maybe don't change a thing.
So some of the guests on the show so far have been avid readers. Others have learnt through experience and aren't so much or don't have the time to read. If you guys could pick one business book that you'd maybe recommend to the listeners, what would it be?
I suppose I'd love to say, yes, I read this book and such, but no, I don't really have the time. Two things I would say. One is that I think sometimes as we hear from other business guru type people and coaches that, you should read a book every month. I think if you've got that time, that's great, and you can pick things up, that's great. But actually, it's far better to go out and practice and actually do it. I think there are far many things out there that encourage businesses to try or business people when they're setting up to do sort of exercises and processes, and I think the reality of running businesses and setting up is quite different. And I would also say, if you've got time to read as a business person, read a book that's an escape, nothing to do with business. Read a novel, read something that you're interested in, a passion or a hobby, because if you've got the time to read, then use that time to have some downtime and relax.
Okay, good answer. Stephen?
And it's quite annoying because that's exactly what I was going to say. That really, I don't read business books either, and when I do read a book, it's for me. It's to nourish my soul,
Okay. It's a great way of looking at it, most definitely. So we're coming to the end of the interview now, but before I let you both go, because I know you've got so much to get on with and organise, I've just got a couple more questions. If we were sat in front of somebody here today that's about to take the jump into launching their own business, and based on all your own experiences and what you've learnt from the business people that you meet with on a regular basis, you could pass on 3 pieces of advice, what would they be?
Okay, first one, I would say don't procrastinate and just take the leap. I would say make sure that you've done your research so that there is actually a gap in the market for what you're wanting to do. And then finally, I'd say be careful where you spend your money.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Good, definitely some good lessons there and some brilliant advice. Thank you for that, Stephen. I'm going to pass that one over to you as well, Philip.
Be confident in yourself as a person, because if that's the one skill that will get you into a meeting or get you that phone call, or when you're dealing with clients, you've got to be confident, because if you're not, that will come across to whoever you're talking to or you're pitching to, and you need to have that as almost a basic skill. I think don't be afraid to be different. Don't think that because all other businesses in your sector are doing it this way, that by you doing it a different way is wrong. And listen to people. The best thing is always to listen to businesses and pick up what's gone right for them, what's gone wrong, and look at it, whether or not that fits into your business. But at the same time, don't be put off if someone says that's wrong, that's rubbish, that's not how to do it, you shouldn't do it that way. Be confident again. Have some belief in what you're doing.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And my final question for today, if people want to find out more about Stephen, Philip, or Cuckoo Connect, whereabouts can we find you online?
Okay, you can find us both on LinkedIn, Stephen Goddard, Philip Brooks-Stevenson. Best place to find out about Cuckoo Connect is our website, which is cuckoo-connect.co.uk. And there on the homepage, it will ask you where you want to network. So it will list 3 counties, Derbyshire, Leicestershire or Lincolnshire. Just click on there and it will show you the details of the latest Connect reception. While you're on the website as well, have a look around the news page, which shows our previous Connect receptions as well. So it will give you a flavour of what you can expect. And finally, and most importantly, the join page as well, which lists all of the extra member benefits, because there's so much more to Cuckoo Connect membership than just coming to the monthly Connect receptions. We have 8 other benefits that are designed to help your business grow.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, just to, as Stephen mentioned earlier, that any organisation, whether or not you're a charity, brand new business, established, is welcome to a Connect reception as a free guest once, essentially to come and see what it's all about. So if you're interested, then come and have a free place to
say
Connect
hello,
reception.
Yeah, and as mentioned earlier, all of those links will be included in the show notes over at benjaminbrain.co.uk. So that wraps up today's interview. I just want to say thank you so much to both Stephen and Philip. This was the first time I've had 2 guests on the show, so I wasn't sure how it was going to pan out, but you've both been amazing. So I've really enjoyed my time with you. You've given some great insights, really loved the story. You've been very honest and open with the answers that you've given. So thank you for joining me on the podcast, and I really want to wish you and the Cuckoo Connect, an amazing 2020. So it's going to be good to definitely turn up to an event for myself and also see how it continues to grow. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
It's been great.
Thanks for having us.
To all of the listeners, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate your support. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and you've taken something from it as well. So already really looking forward to catching up with you on next week's episode of The Truth About Business. One final thing before you go. If you enjoyed this interview and want to make sure you don't miss out on the next episode with another real-life business champion, make sure you subscribe via iTunes, Spotify, your favourite podcast app, or by visiting my blog at benjaminbrain.co.uk and hitting subscribe. At the blog, you'll also find the show notes to this episode, which includes all the relevant links to the website, social media channels, contact details, and anything else that was discussed in the episode. Just type in the name of the guest, and that will bring that right up for you. And finally, I'm always on the search for great business owners who would be happy to spare just a couple of hours of the time to share their business experience with our audience. So if you know of anyone that would make a great guest, or you'd like to feature yourself, just let me know. Send an email to hello@benjaminbrain.co.uk and I'll reply personally as soon as possible. Also, if you've got any feedback, questions that you'd like me to ask our guests, or any other suggestions, I am definitely all ears. That email address again is hello@benjaminbrain.co.uk. So that's it for this episode. I just want to thank you sincerely for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay hungry, stay fearless, get out there and make it happen.